Hey, how's it going, guys? So, right before I start this podcast, I just want to let you guys know that this podcast is going to have spoilers for Metaphor. So, if you have not played the game or you don't know spoilers, please be aware of that. Just giving a heads up because we forgot to say the heads up at the start of the podcast. So, I'm saying it in post. But yeah, anyways, enjoy the podcast. Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another great podcast by Falto. So today is going to be a little special podcast because we will be doing it on the quote-unquote newest game called Metaphor ReFantazio. I say quote-unquote because this game came out at this point like 2 months ago.
3
But
months
yeah,
back?
yeah.
October, November, December. 3 months back.
Oh, 3 months. Okay, my bad. Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Middle of this month will be 3 months.
Yeah. So, but hey, better late than never. So, but yeah. Can if my guests can introduce themselves. So, Nish, you can go first.
Okay, yeah. Hey guys, Nishquik here from the channel Nishquik Pops. I talk about Nintendo and JRPGs on my channel, focusing on Xenoblade Chronicles, Legend of Zelda, Final Fantasy, Persona, Metaphor, Atlas games. Yeah, I'm excited to chat about Metaphor because I had a really good time with it.
Okay, thank you for that. And please subscribe to his channel, which I will leave down in the link below. And then Elementary, you could go next.
Alright, hello, I'm Elementary, my dear. I don't have a YouTube channel. I just occasionally pop up in other Xenoblade YouTubers' videos as some weird Easter egg, basically.
And last but not least, Yig, if you could introduce yourself.
Of course. Hey, everyone, it's Yggdrasiel. I hope we're all having a good time. I'm glad to be here to discuss my thoughts on Metaphor ReFantazio, but normally I cover mostly Monolith Soft as well as Nintendo and just a general focus on RPGs and JRPGs, but Monolith Soft and Xenoblade are generally my focus. Regardless, this is my first technically second Atlas game that I've ever completed, so I'm quite excited to be here and discuss Metaphor.
Guys, I just wanted to say, I just want to get this out of the way. The game is pronounced Metaphor ReFantazio, but
Okay.
anyways,
Okay.
I just want to say that.
All right.
I'm just gonna call it Metaphor. I'm gonna be real with
Metaphor
you there.
itself is great.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in hearing different pronunciations of ReFantazio throughout the lead up to this game, up until like when we got the demo and like the announcer actually said the full title. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, that's how you say it." So yeah.
Interesting. But yeah, and please subscribe to Yig's channel as well, which I will also leave down in a link below, and also subscribe to my channel as well. But yeah. Anyways, without any further ado, let's jump right into the meat of the podcast. Alrighty, so the very first part of this podcast that we're going to talk about is the gameplay section, but to be more specific, it's the non-combat aspect. We will talk about the combat just after this, but first we'll talk about our thoughts and opinions based on like the social sims or like outside of the combat gameplay of this game. So, Nish, if you could go first and say what your thoughts are.
Okay. I really was a little I wouldn't say concerned, but I was a little worried because I was one of the people who was saying like, "Oh, this is not gonna be like Persona. It's not gonna play like Persona, even though it has like similar stuff and the calendar system and social links and all that." But then I actually played the game, and even though it had the calendar system, even though it had social links and social stats, the way I was going about a lot of it felt very different and unique because like with the Gauntlet Runner, you're like traveling between different locations, you have to manage your time in that way. You have to like you'll take like multiple days to travel. So I like that different and unique twist on things. And it felt more expansive, like Persona, like you're in Persona 5, you're like in Tokyo only. Persona 4, you're only in Inaba. Persona 3, you're in that island area. And Metaphor, you're like going to like different like nations and continents and islands. So it almost made me like I think Atlas has said this, like they wanted Persona 5 to be like that globetrotting adventure, and that's kind of what they made Metaphor. And I liked that the unique approach to the counter system didn't feel exactly like Persona did. I don't know, that's just what I think, and that's just how I felt about it. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. And now, Elementary, what about you? What were your thoughts on it?
I very much just kind of was like, oh yeah, it's just generic Persona mechanics. Like, I did like the like whole like world building component of it that is a lot fresher compared to like what we normally get with Persona games, where it's just like, oh yeah, you have like a couple of maps and you don't really go to anywhere except these few maps, and you don't really get the ability to backtrack to any of them. And I was very glad that we got that ability in this game, and I think that I also liked how like the globe, like how the Gauntlet Runner, how it affected like the time in the game and all that, and how that affected the calendar. I enjoyed I enjoyed that kind of stuff a lot. I felt like that was pretty unique, but for me, for the most part, it was like, yeah, this is pretty standard stuff.
Okay, nice, nice. And what about you, Yig?
So again, as someone who's only played Tokyo Mirage Sessions as the other Atlas game,
I'm sorry for your loss. Go on.
it was okay, but I mean that was my point of reference. So at least I get the gist of combat, and day to day, there's not really all too much for day to day going on in that game. As like side quests, who Big Whoop or going to like a few of the optional things in that game, but not really a day-to-day system in play. But social interactions were largely pretty good. I quite enjoyed a lot of the discussions and character builds up, and I did like that they focused on different aspects of the world building with each character for those social interactions. There are some parts I feel like pacing. Certain parts of the game being paced specific ways might have maybe felt off when I went to go do social interactions in that time. But aside from that, it was overall pretty good. No complaints by me.
I do agree in that way, because Persona 5 and other Persona games have a good like balance of the dungeon gameplay and the social life stuff and the story heavy cutscene stuff. There are some times in Metaphor where you're just going straight story stuff, and for a while I was like, hey, I want to get back in a dungeon, I want to do some combat. And then some of those arcs, like this might be going like a little bit further on, but like it's still gameplay related, but some of those arcs didn't even have a dungeon. I was like, what? Why? It felt like so out of place.
Yeah,
and I was like, it didn't feel out of place, it just felt empty in that way. But the story stuff was still very good that was happening there, but I was like, if you could just like pace it out with some other stuff, that would be perfect.
I will say, again, as the first time having to deal with this kind of pacing, it was a little tricky. Like, if I didn't have friends playing Metaphor conjunctively, I wouldn't really have a sense of how to pace myself. It's like, do I go into the dungeon or do I do social stuff? Or it's like, what's the value of this social thing? Will I be able to complete all social stuff by the end of the game? Like, if I didn't have friends playing and helping to guide me alongside my playthrough, I probably would have felt like messed up right there. So maybe that's something that, I don't know, needs to be taken into a little more consideration for players who are new to this kind of social system or social/daily system. But overall, I got the hang of it, and ultimately, it was a good experience.
Yeah, I didn't have that issue because I played like the Persona games, but I can see where it's coming from. Where if you never played Persona, for example, yeah, then I think the game should probably do a better job of explaining to you like, hey, you could do XYZ, but there's a risk of or like so So like you could do X or you could do Y on a given day and spend your free time. And additionally, I also agree with Nishka for most of the things that he mentioned in the gameplay section, because I like the social sim aspect. I like the Gauntlet Runner. No, I didn't like. I loved the Gauntlet Runner, I should say, because I like that, you know, like you could take a few days to travel to a dungeon and you could do stuff on the Gauntlet Runner itself if you want to like improve your stats or do a bond, which was actually a thing that actually took me by a bit of surprise, because there was a bit, or not a bit, but there was a time in the game where I thought that I'm supposed to level up my bond, because like if you go on to like the bond menu, it looks like it can be like leveled up. However, it's not available. But then I quickly learned that actually if I'm traveling to a dungeon, then some bonds appear. So there are some like levels. I think it's different for every character, where certain bonds have to be done on the Gauntlet Runner when you're traveling. Uh, I will say one quick thing though. I do wish that we could access the Gauntlet Runner when we're not traveling, because it could be a bit cool. Like it could be a bit cooler. Or I guess a bit nicer, or easier, I should mention, where if I have like nothing to do in the town, but I want to like improve my health, for example, so like I could like so I could like do the laundry, for example, or you know, because yeah, I believe
Yeah,
those health
I remember like
that was
when you're
MP.
stationed at a town, you can
Yeah,
still go to the Runner, but you can't like do
yeah,
anything because it's not powered up. That's
yeah.
what they keep saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, which I felt was a bit. I mean, I get it because they want to make it, like a bit more harder or a bit more challenging. Like, hey, like if you want to access, you have to be traveling. But yeah, one thing that I found to be a bit funny. I'm not complaining, but I felt like the teleportation was a little bit of like a last minute gimmick, just to make it a bit easier on us, because it's like, hey, wait a minute. So we can just teleport, but only to locations we have been to before. Which I guess, to me it felt like they probably like added in like later in development to like make it. You know what? We can make it a bit easier on them. So like after they finish a dungeon, if it's on the last day, they don't have to worry about missing the due date. They can
Yeah,
just
I
like
would have
go
hated
back.
if you had to like actually travel back and spend days traveling back. That would have
Yeah,
been
yeah. Again, I'm not
very
complaining.
inconvenient.
Yeah,
I
I'm not.
feel like it would. I feel like I would have liked that if that was like part
Oh,
of
really?
hard mode, because I feel like hard like I feel like the difficulty difference between the different game modes wasn't really noticeable for me.
Hmm.
Mm.
I thought it was at first, and then like anyway, I don't want to get into that too much right now. But
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like that could have been an interesting mechanic to make hard mode more difficult. But yeah, I'm glad it's not a thing
Yeah,
normally.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Again, I'm not complaining. I just find it funny. That's all.
Oh, here's something big with gameplay that I forgot to mention. I like the follower bonds quite a bit, and I like that you don't have to choose the right answers anymore. Because that was something I didn't dislike in Persona, but it was always an inconvenience. Like in Persona 4, I didn't get to do all the social links because I didn't realize that was a mechanic, and I screwed up so many of my social links and wasted so many times, like so many time slots with like broken social links, as I call it, or
Oh,
like just wasting the time not leveling up the social link. So
yeah.
in Persona 5 Royal, I had the dialogue guide, which was kind of distracting for me, having to like choose the right answer all the time. That was annoying. And then I had to do the same thing with the reload. But with Metaphor, you don't like it doesn't matter. So that's very good. I appreciated that, but you still get mag for choosing the right answer, so that was great.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah. I agree with you, because I remember when I played Persona 3, I think I hugged Yukari and then it reversed, or not reversed, but like it like locked my rank, and I'm like, bro, what the heck? She's like basically
Yeah.
crying out here, and me hugging her in game, like how's that a crime? But okay, but I'm not like I don't want to get into Persona 3 right now, but just wanted to, yeah. So like I feel your struggle, or I remember, yeah, or I remember my struggle as well, which was similar, and I like that in this game. It's a bit more lenient.
Yeah.
Because it just is what the amount of mag you get, or sometimes in the if you're trying to go for a social stat like a virtue stat, it's just oh no, you get one less of the stat, huh?
Yeah.
So I didn't even know that there's repercussions for answering wrong in the previous game, so I gotta be careful when I hit Persona.
It's not necessarily repercussions, but it's just like you don't advance them as
it's a repercussion, but it's not like a you lose something repercussion. It's that you don't gain something repercussion.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
not
zero instead of a net negative.
Yeah, I will say
Yeah.
when you're playing Persona, definitely do make use of I think the 16 or 32 save slots. I don't remember exactly how many they have, but they have
Yeah.
quite a lot. So like use them all to like, I'd say like for one per day. So like use a different one per day if you're gonna save often. So that's my like recommendation. So you can like, go back if needed.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Persona 3 Reload has the rewind feature, so that's another benefit in that way of that game. But yeah, that's another gameplay thing I appreciated quite a bit in Metaphor. Yeah.
All right, now we are on to the gameplay or I should say the comeback section of the gameplay for this podcast. And I butchered that again, but I'm going to keep that in. Okay, so Nishk, if you want to say your thoughts regarding gameplay for this game. I mean, combat.
Okay.
Fuck. So I'm sorry, I keep messing.
Yeah, combat.
Yeah, combat.
I'm most curious to hear what you have to say, Falto, because I think I remember you saying that you really didn't like the combat of this game.
Yeah,
But I will say I didn't I thought it was pretty good because I am familiar with like the 3 like popular Persona games, and then not lately, but recently I played Shin Megami Tensei 5. So I was more familiar with the press turn combat. So when I realized that they're incorporating press turn into Metaphor, I was very excited because I was like, oh, that has much more strategy in my opinion. I enjoy it a lot more than the one more system in Persona where you just do one more and knock every shadow down and then do the all-out attack. It just gets a little bit repetitive. I enjoy the press turn combat quite a bit. And for how it's incorporated into this game, I like that there's so many different build varieties with the archetypes. Leveling up your archetypes and getting skills and allocating skills and all that, it does take a little longer and it's more cumbersome, and that is kind of a negative I have. It's a little grindy in that way. But I like how the archetype system plays into the press turn combat system of SMT. It feels entirely different from a Persona leveling system, and like it's not a monster capturing game like SMT or Persona was. And what else? Oh yeah, with the combat, I liked synthesis. I wish I used it a bit more, but I with the setups that I had in my party most of the time, I just never had the best synthesis like combos. So I was just never set up for good synthesis, and that's kind of on me. That's my like negligence and idiocy, I guess. But then one more thing I will say about the combat is I like the action stuff, but I was hoping for so much more. It was a little bit of a disappointment for me. I don't think it's bad, but I think if they like it felt a little stiff with some archetypes. Like it felt stiff. The running and the dodging especially the dodging and the iframes, like when you're avoiding enemies, it felt a little weird. And I was I'll say this, a real quick anecdote. Before this game came out, like when we'd seen the December Game Awards trailer in December 2023, I was hoping it would be like Trails through Daybreak combat, where you can swap between turn-based and action whenever you wanted. I like that they focused more on turn-based in this, and it may not have worked as well in this system the Metaphor has going for it, but I think in the next game, whatever they do for the next game, they should develop more of the action combat and kind of do more of that. But I one more thing is I think it's really cool that different archetypes for the MC give you different actions in the overworld. That's very cool. But I think the next game should incorporate more cool stuff for the combat. That's just me. So yeah, what do you guys think of what I had to say? Or like, what are your guys' thoughts as well?
Yeah, okay. So I agree with a good amount of that. I think for me, like, when it comes to like just RPGs in general, I've played a lot of them by this point. I know I'm very jaded to like end game design philosophy and all that, and it's to the point where I think one of the things you really start to notice is the importance of like eventually boss design really matters, and that is like my one criticism with like the like even like the turn-based side of things with Metaphor, where it's like all the bosses in the second half are the exact same boss over and over again, and that really bothered me. I really wish they had more creativity. When I went into like the super bosses, I was like, oh my god, these are so cool, they're gonna be so interesting, and then I was like super hyped to get killed by them the first 3 or 4 times, and then I realized, wait a minute. But
aren't like the dragons like basically the same, like like effectively? I remember doing
effectively they're all kind of the same.
It's just two mechanics that are like their gimmick, but essentially, yeah, they all play the same.
Which I thought was a little boring. As for the combat, one thing that again, as Nish pointed out earlier, I did not like the combat. That's not to say I didn't have fun entirely, because I did have fun at some aspect, because I did like the press run combat from SMT5, and like at some, like as a concept, I like it was fine here, but the execution was not the best in my opinion. For example, I didn't like this game suffers from the same thing that I think a lot of like JRPGs have, where it's actually kind of difficult at the start, but then later on it gets easier as you unlock more abilities, which I think is actually not a good video game to design, because it should be the other way around in my opinion. And like the bosses were kind of just straight up classic Atlas bosses, aka sponges, which I mean I don't like, but it is what it is, because that's pretty much what Atlas kind of does. And don't get me started on the final boss, bro.
Oh my god, yeah.
That took so long.
Was more annoying than it needed to be.
Yeah.
See, I think for me, I'm sorry to cut.
No, that's fine. Go on.
I think while we're on the topic of like difficulty and like where and which parts of the game, for me, I feel like it's actually, I found it funnest at the start of the game, but that's just myself and make the most of what you have, because I don't know for difficulty what you guys are playing on, but I was playing on hard mode.
Same.
So it was a matter of making the most with what I had. And then as we start getting more and more, and we have like the big bulk of the archetypes available to us, I feel like at that point, it's just like, okay, start picking around with like, go for these weird ones. It's like, why do I need to go for I don't know, so and so to unlock? Why do I need to why do I need to go for X to have Y unlocked? Like, this doesn't feel good, or like this doesn't make sense.
The royal archetype grind was not fun.
Yeah, and then
I actually
bearing through
disagree with that.
Then finally getting to the end and building the stuff at the end, like, okay, now you have all the resources, you have the end game stuff, like start making your dream team archetypes, then it got fun again. But there's like a big hulking middle section for me that just felt a little slow and monotonous, and like you're trying to like get a sense of what to go for, but you don't really know what or how you want it to shape up, so it ends up becoming like a mishmash for me.
I grinded out every single archetype on the MC before I finished the story. And I was like doing that as I was going through the game, like and I figured out that there was like a much easier way to do it really early on, and that's because like whenever you max out an archetype you've already maxed out, or whenever you level up an archetype you've already leveled up again, it will just give you like the like level up material thing, the thing that give you like experience. I don't remember what it's called.
The heroes leaves.
the heroes leave.
Mhm.
And so all you just got to do is basically get like everyone in your party to like max out like one archetype, and then you just continuously grind out those leaves on like
Yeah.
every single party
Mhm.
member, and you just spam those on like on your MC to get all that stuff maxed out. And it works, but it's like I'm pretty sure over half of my playtime is just from doing that. And I know that like whenever I had to reload a save, that was like from after I had done a bunch of grinding, like
Oh,
before
no.
that, I would like, and this happened multiple times. I think there's like what 20-30 hours of reloaded saves on for me. Like in Metaphor, I've undone so much of my grinding time and then had to redo all of it, and it's like I feel like if anyone else was doing this like it would have been absolute hell for them. The only reason it probably wasn't for me is because I play Xenoblade X and somehow that's worse.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh God.
Yeah, the grinding in Metaphor was not it was kind of I wouldn't say mandatory, but it was inevitable for most people. And I actually found it crazy that like what was funny is one of me and Yggdrasil's friends, he did not mind like that at all. He just felt very natural going through the game and like leveling up his archetypes. And it was like mid to late game where he figured out the hero Leaf of Light bonus thing, and I'm like, how did you like go through so much of this game and not like get use of that? Because like I was like abusing that like benefit
Yeah.
of the game. I'm like,
Oh God.
it helps, but it also like holds you back.
It's such a like a like it's an I feel like it's like this exploit that the game expects you to like learn, but at the same time, if you don't use it, it's like not necessary. It's so weird.
It is a little strange. I don't know how to feel about it. Truly.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Yeah, I personally did not find like but the classes like grinding that difficult because again, like I did the strat that like elementary did because I too like kind of like figured out that hey, wait a minute, like if I max out my like at least one like class on like every character, so I can just keep that class on, and then basically so like I get like the points of like after every battle, and then and it's kind of like it's I guess you could call it like some sort of like credit or something, where it's like basically I could use that on any like rank by getting not any rank, I mean on like any class on like any character by just yeah, so I like that as well. But also one thing I did not like actually instead is that I don't know if it's just me, if I did something wrong, but I somehow was extremely under like leveled, like before the final area ish. I think I was like level 55 somehow, and I was supposed to like be like
Oh wow.
near
70,
level
right?
70.
Jeez.
Yeah, level
Yeah.
70, level 80, somewhere around that range.
Yeah, and I was at 55. I'm like, how? I mean, and it's not like I was avoiding fights because I wasn't. I was doing like most fights that like I came, like I wasn't actively like running away from fights. So I don't know what happened. For context,
And you get a good idea what level you are when you see like which enemies you can knock down with
Yeah.
fast combat.
yeah, and for context, I was playing
Yeah.
on normal / easy mode because I kept like switching from time to time. But in the second half, I was a bit more on the easy side.
I put it on easy for the super boss dragons.
Okay,
And then I
fit,
switched back to normal.
yeah, no shame in my because
I cleared everything on hard. I spent
Oh,
and this
wow.
is like I know we wanted
Yeah.
to do this. I know that we wanted to do this so much earlier. The reason we didn't is because I was the one delaying it, and a large part of that was just me getting screwed over on the super bosses. To the point where it eventually became a contest of I know I have the ability to beat this boss. It's just having to reset the fight over and over again because for whatever reason in this run
it just feels so luck based.
The computer is telling them AoE with all the stuff that my team is weak to, and then another run, it'll just single target focus this one character that's resistant or has high dodge, and then I just have the god pull, and I get the thing in like 3 turns.
Yeah, that's
like
not
half of the super boss fight is just luck, and the other half is realizing that the AI has like a specific pattern of like if you do a specific thing, they will counter it and undo all of your progress, and then utterly fucking annihilate you, and just making sure not to do that over. And that's literally all. I didn't even finish the New Game Plus super boss fight because like I was just like it's just gonna be more of the same shit, and pardon my French. And it's and then there's like all the mechanics of New Game Plus that like at first it sounded like really appealing, and then like I start getting into some of the like specifics of how would they do it, and it's like, oh god, no.
Yeah, going by what Yig said, yeah, I'm not really a fan of like that type of gameplay where it's not supposed to be like luck based. It should be more skill based, but or I should say skill like reliant instead of luck reliant. But in the end, in this game, it ends up being luck reliant, which I think is not a good game design in my opinion. Now, as for New Game Plus, I've yet to play that. I'm actually going to be playing that for like footage for this podcast. So wish me luck. Hopefully,
I do not recommend
fun.
trying the. I don't recommend trying the new difficulty because
I wouldn't do that. Go on.
The way they do New Game Plus is they literally take away all of your resources at the start, and so like the tutorial like and all the stuff going through the tutorial on like the hardest difficult like the new difficulty is borderline impossible. Do not let yourself get into any fights at all until you get your like your metaphors unlocked, because it's not possible.
Your archetypes, you mean?
Yeah, archetypes.
No, your metaphors.
Sorry, it's been a few months since I played the game. My brain is not computing.
It's all good.
I'm drawing from very broken memories right now.
It's all good. But yeah, yeah, I mean, I will let you guys know how my New Game Plus, I guess, opinions are. Obviously, can't say it for the podcast because I haven't played it yet. One thing that kind of I didn't like so much is that I don't know if it's a skill issue, but the game just felt hard in general. It's like for example, on normal mode, if the enemy gets the advantage on you where like you don't engage in combat but they engage in combat with you, it's most of the time I am basically just done, where it's like I'm gonna have to like reload the save file or like pray that I don't get like nearly KO'd in like like at the start of the battle.
It felt like the game was very dependent on like the action combat, despite like the turn-based felt like it was more dependent on what you did in the action combat beforehand in a lot of cases. I think again like boss fights ended up being a pretty big exception to that. And that really highlights the problem with like the second half of the game's like boss fight design, where they're very cardboard cut out of each other. But yeah.
One also, what just like finishing my thoughts from what I was saying just a second ago, I just wish that they did two things. Number one is I wish there was a soft reset button, which like when you're in the combat, it takes it to the title screen, because I feel like restarting the battle is not that useful when half the times I'm going to lose a battle because I don't have the right equipment or like the right class on me. So effectively, restarting the battle is kind of meaningless. Instead, I have to just turn the game on and off, because that's the fastest way for me to get back in, instead of having to just die. And then...
on hard mode, there's a lot of stuff that's just like, oh yeah, you need to fish for a crit on turn 1. That like the restart in combat is just there so that if you don't get the crit on turn 1, so that you get like for the press turn stuff, so you can get an extra action on press turn.
Oh my
gosh. You have to do it. That's why that exists. It's just for hard mode crit fishing.
Wow.
Can I also say?
Wow.
Can I also say? while we're on the topic of like trying to like get a restart on it, I do really appreciate the fact that if combat's not going our way, we have the option to restart the fight from the beginning. Can we please be able to do that during the opponent's? It's a really small nitpick, but can we please have the option to do that during the
like,
opponent's turn?
It's
oh,
just
yes, that
annoying
could
when
be-
like you've got to sit through now like 30 actions from the opponent, and you're not gonna win because like it's like, oh yeah, it's one of the
Yeah.
super bosses. You're screwed the moment you see him like activate those 30
and
actions.
you can
Let me
avoid a
just
potential
restart.
game over in that way as well, so you don't have to like waste your time like reloading the game and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and my other thing that I wish this game did is I wish like the action combat part actually was more meaningful, because like what I was thinking initially what that they would do is that you could like drain like something like 1/4, or maybe if we're lucky like half of their HP just in the action combat, and then it starts the battle. Like it's fine what they did, where like you like if you initiate the action combat and you're like successful in like staggering them, then like they're kind of like knocked out for like, or like I guess you could say put into coma or something. I don't remember the exact term they use in the game. But I wish
Stun or whatnot. I don't
yes,
know.
yes, stunned. But so I wish instead it was like depending on how much damage you deal like in the action, that's how much less HP they have. I think that could make it more fun, or more fair, I should say. But that's just my opinion in that.
Yeah, it's a lot more like Daybreak. I've played like all of Daybreak 2 already because don't worry about it how I did that.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but sure.
It's just like when I compare like the combat of like Metaphor and Daybreak, it's like Metaphor feel like a side grade of like Daybreak 1's combat to me. Like it feels like it was a lot more focused on like the turn-based mechanics and like balancing around that, whereas Daybreak feels, I can't even say it's more about balancing the I mean, I guess it is more about like balancing the real time like the action combat, because just to confirm, you all know what Daybreak is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
know what
I'm
it.
tempted to play the demo just to see what it's like, even though I've never played a Trails game before.
Yeah, I know what the game
I'm not
is.
jumped on Trails. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what the game is, but I don't know what you meant when you said that. Don't worry about it. How I played it. I'm like, what do you mean
Daybreak
by
2
that?
isn't out yet. It's not out in English.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
I got it.
neither is the latest game, Kaino Kiseki, which I'm planning to play through similar means, and once again, don't worry about what that means.
Okay, I see what you mean. Okay, I got it.
I'm
Yeah.
interested to see. I'm excited to finally experience this combat system because the Sky remake is going to have it as well.
Yeah,
it
it's
will?
going to be a bit
Okay.
different. It's not going to be quite the same. Daybreak had like, okay, there was like 3 core like systems that play with Daybreak, right? The first system is like the action combat. The second system is the turn-based combat, and that's kind of what you expect. But then the third system is kind of like this returning system from the like older Trails game that's been revamped, and it's really, really good. And it's how they do about like gems and passive skills, basically. And it's the orbment system.
Yes, I've heard of that. Yes.
Yeah, and in the Daybreak games, they've completely revamped it. It's really, really fascinating. It's really fun, and they've designed it in a way to bridge this really nice gap between like the turn-based and action combat, where it's like in Daybreak 1, it's not the most well balanced for either turn-based or action combat. Like in turn-based combat, you can loop your ultimate attacks like 30 times in a row on the entire enemy field for free with like no consequence at all, and it is the easiest thing to do at all in the game. And in action combat, if they forgot to code the enemy to be able to force you into turn-based combat, then when they hit you, they cannot kill you. And there are a couple of enemies like that in the game. So
interesting.
It's like it's certainly the game design of all time, but it feels like it's equally as fun as like Metaphor is, because Metaphor feels like it was much better polished off when it came to those two things, but it feels like Daybreak had like the orbment system, and that went hard as all crap. That went really, really well for like augmenting. Like, yeah, there was a lot of problems, there's a lot of holes in how they've designed the two core mechanics, but it's like because of the existence of like the orbment system, it feels equally as fun for a very different slew of reasons.
Mhm.
Daybreak 2 completely overhauled like the turn-based system. They made it so you can't loop your ultimate abilities a bunch, and then they overhauled the real-time combat, so enemies will always be able to like knock you into real-time combat, but also so that the real-time combat is way faster, because it is insanely slow in the original game, or in Daybreak 1, to the point where every single time you do anything with action combat, all you want to do is attack, attack, dodge, attack, attack, dodge, attack, attack, dodge, and if you don't do that, you get hit. There is nothing else you want to do.
I think the pets agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I haven't played Trails yet, but I do wanna get started or play one of the games. I'm probably gonna play when the Sky remake comes out. I think Nishquik also said the same thing, if I'm correct.
I'm gonna likely be waiting for the Sky remake as well. I do want to jump in and play Trails as a whole series, but I figure I've been told like already, like, just wait for this, essentially.
Yeah, I feel like that's I feel like it's either like start with the Sky games or start with the Crossbell game, because Sky I feel like has iffy pacing issues from a story standpoint, whereas Crossbell I think has like really good pacing all the way through, and gameplay in the original Sky is okay. I'm really excited for what they're gonna do for this, because it looks like it's kind of like an in between in some stuff for Daybreak 1 and Daybreak 2. But Metaphor, like, compared to like Daybreak, it's I feel like I end up still liking Daybreak more, just because like the orbit system was so good.
Yeah, what Metaphor has going for it is the archetypes, and that kind of adds the spice to the kind of a pressure in combat with the action elements. That's something that Daybreak and any other Trails game won't have. It won't have this complex kind of job system with different trees and lineages and skill inheritance and all that. But
I mean, it kind of does through the orbit system. It's just very different in how it all works.
Okay.
It's because it's like you essentially equip like gems like you would in like Xenoblade or something, or like Final Fantasy, or like any kind of like generic RPG. But like the gems give you like it like gives you a value, and then that value determines like how like your abilities grow and change like as you get better and better gems and whatnot. And this all like cascades into this complex system that gives you like a weird skill tree system that's not at all a skill tree, but it's simultaneously very much like a skill tree. And this it creates like dedicated roles and build layouts that feel like generic classes, and how it's all designed, and how the like gem slots are all like optimized per character, so that they feel like they've got classes, it feels like they've got jobs, it feels like you can change and alter them in a way, but it's not at all like that at all, and it's strange. Metaphor has the archetypes, and I feel like the archetypes are more of like a standard job, like class change system to it. It's a lot more of a simplistic like structure, and a more basic, like this is like a very rugged, like this is how these kinds of mechanics work kind of like thing that you'd see in a lot of RPGs, where it's like it's very much a job change system, it's very much a class change system. It affects your stats, it affects your abilities, right? You can like move over some of your abilities from one thing, or equip like something from another thing. And I think the thing that the archetype system does have that's very interesting, that's like a more unique thing, is like the not the synthesis skills, the ones that are like when everyone in your party, or the more people in your party are of the same like lineage.
the same lineage,
Yeah, those
Some of
skills
those
are like
passives
probably
are
one of the
pretty good.
those passives are I think one of the more unique things they did in Metaphor.
Yeah.
That I think are that's pretty fascinating. I didn't get to dabble with those too much. I found out like after I beat the game, like from looking stuff up online, like oh yeah, they're the most broken skills of the game, and I was like, oh
Yeah, because they're always so expensive. I never purchased them.
All right. Yeah, that was a nice combat conversation featuring trails mentioned, but it's all
Featuring
good.
trails.
It's fine. It's fine. But yeah, as for combat, to round things off, let's see if I have anything else. I'm just checking my notes. Let's see. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about one more like minor thing. The autoplay button that was extremely overpowered, and I like. Okay, no, I should say I both like it and I both dislike it. In a sense, I wish they did what they did with like SMT5, where or Vengeance, I should say, where basically if you remember Nish, so like when you
Mhm.
do like the autoplay mode, you have the option to like do auto attacks or use like skills in general. So so I wish they had that here, because here I think they pretty much just use skills slash like, or it's a mix of both, and it's basically a win button. Effectively, like you don't play at all and you will win, because it like
well, that's like the standard thing. There's a button that lets you like change the setting for it, so that you have one of like there's like different modes for the auto battle.
Oh, there is.
And one of there's a couple of other ones, and the ones you just described, those are some of the other modes.
Wait, what? Hold on, I did not know this. What the heck?
Yeah, no, I would usually default it to one of the other modes, but it's like because at a certain point in the game, it's like it's not really much of a win, but at least on hard mode, it's not much of a win button. It's usually just a die faster mode, and so some of the other modes, like for the auto battle, are just how quickly do you want to die faster when you just need to reset and for some reason can't manage to just restart the fight normally.
Yeah,
Which
okay.
should almost never happen, but that's usually just a turn-based thing.
Yeah,
Or
I
it's usually
didn't.
just an enemy turn thing.
Hold on, what the heck? I did not know about this. I could have sworn that this wasn't a thing, unless I'm like brain farting, because it has been 3 months since I played this game, so I could be mistaken.
What
But
are you? What feature are you talking about? Are you talking about like the tactics menu?
I believe so.
because I don't,
I believe that's what it was called.
because I don't think, because I think there's only one mode if I remember, on like.
No, I remember there being at least 3
Okay.
for auto battle.
Yeah, I was wishing that auto battle would be similar to how it was like in Persona 3 Reload, if you guys played that. Because in Reload, I would just press, like, I would play on mouse and keyboard. That's how I play a lot of turn-based games. I would press tab, and it would just speed up the battle. It would go in fast forward, and they would just use their swords and their, like, melee weapons to, like, deal with the, like, small fry enemies,
Mhm.
so to speak.
Yeah. That's like the
So-
classic auto battle. I still think that's like one of my favorites. That's what I usually tried to set my auto battle settings to in this, because it's just like if I can
Yeah,
just have this grind out quickly.
yeah, and then for this, I do think they do use skills. They do use MP. So like I would do that when I'm like trying to conserve MP as well. So I don't think I don't think I like messed around with the settings if they were there. So I had to
Yeah.
I can see
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah, because I thought that there was only the way for you to use for you to use skills, because I would have turned like the thing on so you don't use skills, and so I can just die quickly and just reload to save quickly. Because sometimes the fastest way for me to reload the save is to just turn the game on and off, which that in itself takes some time, because you have to like go go through the intro and start up, but which can get annoying when you're doing it like 20 times in one session. So but yeah. Yeah, as for combat, I don't have anything else to say. If you guys have anything else, I think we covered a bit, I think most about everything, but if you guys have anything else to mention as well.
Actually, wait, no. One thing about the combat. One last thing.
Okay, yeah, sure, go on, yeah.
Fuck the final boss.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
final boss was not very.
I
Fun.
understood the gimmick
Took
of that
me-
final boss all too straightforwardly. And at that point, it became more of a nuisance than an actual cool idea.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, phase 1, phase 2, I get that. But then it was like, when it would start going into like the 30, like 40% of the second phase, and it started soul screaming for 4 extra turns, I'm just like,
Yeah. So, whenever bosses would soul scream, I would.
Yeah. I hate that skill. Like that is one of the most. I just hate that skill, man. Like,
I
no,
think the
like,
super bosses just traumatized me. So every time I saw
Yeah.
Scream on the screen, I was like, I'm the one screaming. What are you guys like?
yeah,
Oh,
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, I had to fight this twice because what happened is I got the wrong ending. I picked the wrong ending by accident, so I had to pretty much do this twice. Yeah,
I wish
which
they
was not
didn't like
fun.
lock me to Prince, because like Prince is nice, but like let me use Merchant. This
I
would be
wanted
so
to
much
go-
faster with Merchant.
I wanted to go Warlock or Elemental Master, but Prince is just something you can't ignore.
Like, it's not bad, don't get me wrong, but like I there's other things I want to use usually. Like even for the final boss, I kind of didn't want to use Prince because of how slow it was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did end up using Prince because I liked that it was kind of like sort of like a jack of all trades. I like the physical slash attack. I like the almighty attack, so I'd always use those.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
In that way, it was good. And then I had some good inherited skills. Like I had Void Slash from Soul Hacker, so I would like inflict a wind weakness with Juna and then use Void Slash to lower the attack and get a wind attack in. So things like that were fun.
Yeah, that's how I pretty much beat the super bosses. Cause like because I remember like the dragons, they all like I think they repelled magic or something, or they nullified. So the only way for them to actually get a like a hit or like a press or like an extra turn, I should say, is by inflicting the weakness and then hitting them with that weakness. Yeah, I personally like the Prince best for the Almighty skills and for like the synthesis skills, because those were, I think, some of the best ones from what I remember. But yeah.
Yes, Prince has good synthesis skills as well, which I also didn't. I like I said, I didn't use them much, but I should have.
That's yeah. I actually ended up using them a lot, so much so that I ended up buying the item that lets you use half of like a press turn
Yes,
for the
that's
for
a
the
good thing to
synthesis
get.
skills. Yes, so I actually did make use of that myself. But yeah. All right. So if that is it, we shall move on to the next section. Alrighty, we are moving on to the next section of this podcast, and that is the story aspect. So, yeah, so this time I'll just I'll start us off a little bit. So for me, as for story wise, I actually think the story was pretty good. I think from a objective standpoint, it's it's pretty decent. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but it's certainly, objectively speaking, it's very good. It's very well written, and my favorite part was when we were doing like the assassination attempt on Louise. In I forgot the exact town name on top of my head.
Altabury.
Yeah, there. And
Altabury
like,
Heights,
yeah.
Ontario.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so but like during that play, like that was super hype and like super intenseful. Um, However, what I didn't like is that they they revealed that he lived very quickly. Like I think it was like in the next two scenes, effectively, which I felt was like, okay, why did
Yeah.
you do that? It could have been a bit cooler if they've kept the kept the bit that he's dead
The
for a
mystery.
bit longer. Yeah. Or I thought what they were going for is that Luis is actually not going to be like the main antagonist or the main villain. In the end, it's going to be like the Sanctum Church or something, where like the final boss is like Forden or something. Which I think
I like that they kept Luis as
Yeah.
the primary villain. One is because I really like Luis. So
okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
that's my selfishness talking there. I like him as a character quite a bit. But also, it really broke the trend of Atlas doing that. I didn't like when Atlas kept doing that in Persona
Really?
because
Okay.
it didn't feel. It felt so out of nowhere for me, and I never like. I never like. I'm scripting out, or actually, I'm almost done with one of my metaphor videos that I'm writing, and in that video, I talk about how I won't talk about Persona spoilers because Yggdrasil hasn't played the games, but like there's some villains that felt like I should have liked a lot more in Persona, and then they're just kind of pushed to the side, and then some like random like deity like god thing is your final boss, and like
Yeah.
that's usually a kind of critique with the JRPGs, but I think a lot of other games do it better. Like I am a Zanza supporter in Xenoblade 1.
Agreed.
I know many
Oh, God.
people aren't,
I
but I think things like that
and
were
this
done a little bit.
foreshadowed really well.
Zanza's foreshadowed very well, and he really fits into the story of Xenoblade 1. I truly believe that.
Sorry to cut you off. I just want to say one thing. You mentioned I don't want to say Persona spoiler, but we straight up spoil Xenoblade. Just a heads up.
Oh,
it's all.
well,
I mean,
yeah, no,
it's all
yeah.
good. It's all good.
I
but
said
just
no
one-
Persona spoilers for Yggdrasil, but like,
Yeah, for me.
I
Oh,
a lot
okay,
of your
okay.
viewers plays you.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, it's
Xenoblade,
all good. Yeah,
so-
it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, but go on.
Yeah, but with Luis, I think they having the opportunity to really just build his character and have him in a lot of these like situations. I think it really made for a very triumphant ending in that way. But with what you said about Altaberry, I do agree that I wouldn't say it was rushed, but it just kind of happened.
It
and
felt
it
like
happened and it happened. You
It
know?
felt like after Luis supposedly dies, we should have had like more time to kind of build up to the like Forden twist or the
Rella
Luis
twist.
reveal.
We
Yeah.
needed more time for the
Yeah,
Rella twist.
Yeah,
I
exactly,
mean,
yeah.
The Rella twist was great. I think
Yeah.
the Rella twist was like more of a mind-blowing thing to me than the like Luis is still alive thing. And I'm
Yeah,
like, dude, if
like-
that like I don't know. I
Like-
just wanted more of that. I wanted us to get more of
I think it was one too many revelations all at once. I mean, I'm a big
Yeah.
sucker for the revelations 70% of the way into the game. Like we started seeing like all this sorts of stuff, or like the world building just really shoots at that point onward. But I don't think there was enough room to breathe the second you got to Altaberry, because we're still trying to recover from like a handful of the revelations from Section 4 with the Virga Island.
yeah, and even Virga Island teased a lot of things, and I didn't really get to process a lot of that myself. I was like,
Right,
Yeah.
and then you get to
I thought-
Altaberry, and then it just shoot, go.
Yeah, I thought Altaberry was going to expand on some of the stuff that was introduced in Virga Island, but it did not. But I didn't dislike the Altaberry arc because it is arguably one of the climaxes of the game. But as I look back at the story, I don't think it was my favorite part of the game. I'll get into my favorite parts a little later, but yeah, no, going back to what Falto said, like it is a highlight, but the execution was a little iffy. And like I said before, like if we had a freaking dungeon there, man, like I would have loved it so much more if we just had a dungeon.
Yeah.
Because like
just one, because
I
it
looked
would have
online.
it would have made that pacing just a bit nicer.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
because when I looked online to see a list of the dungeons, and guess what one of the dungeons was? The
What?
freaking opera house. The opera house
That's
is
not
not
a
a dungeon.
bro.
That's not a dungeon.
Like-
You're just going up a few stairs and fighting some like guards, and that's it. That's like that was. I was like,
I remember like getting ready to go into that, and I was expecting it to be like really hard because like, oh yeah, they're making us do this like with like all these restrictions, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna be hard again, and then you just breeze through it, and I'm like, that's it.
yeah.
Can I
Yeah.
say? Can I
Go
say
on.
on the topic of dungeons? I don't think I liked any dungeon any greater than the first dungeon, because the first main dungeon sets up such a very good premise, and it does give me again a little bit of that day-to-day gameplay problem of the cathedral is literally under siege. There's like literal chaos in the town, and the king's residence is literally floating in the sky. What's going on? Oh, don't worry, we'll wait 12 days.
That's Atlas
Yeah. Yeah.
And
calendar
I'm like,
system.
oh
for you.
my
Yeah.
god! But
Yeah.
like, I'm like, what's happening? But the cathedral itself, like the dungeon itself, beautiful. Like going from like catacomb, you're in the catacombs, and then you're coming across like a couple of like the people who are trapped, and then here comes was it Katarina? Yeah,
Yeah, Katarina.
here comes Katarina, and then you help her, and then like you're trying to ascend, and then you're coming across some of Louise's men, and then finally Zorba shows up as you're like all the way towards the ascension. It was a great dungeon. Like
it was great, and it reminded me of what a Persona 5 dungeon is like, and it gave me that expectation that the rest of the dungeons were going to be like that, and they weren't. So I was like,
the second dungeon, I was like, okay, I sort of get what we're going for. We're in like we're below the castle, and then okay, we're finally in the castle itself, and then the cat is like goes right to the final boss. And then third dungeon's like 3 puzzles and 3 fights.
I like that the third dungeon was sort of like a stealthy, more combat focused.
Yeah.
It was unique.
Yes.
And then I'm one of the few people who actually enjoyed the Lost City of Shinjuku dungeon. I actually enjoyed it because I was prepared enough to go in there.
I enjoyed that one solely for the shock factor of it.
It was cool. It was very cool, and it was a very nice, environmentally told story.
That's the one with like the maze, right? Or like the one where like
where we that's the Etrian Odyssey dungeon.
Yeah.
God, I hated that dungeon. But
dude, it was peak. I loved it.
Yeah.
I don't think I had like any issue with any of the dungeons. For me, it's just like dungeon crawling is dungeon crawling. I'm too jaded with it at this point.
Yeah, going back to one to like the Luis thing. So me personally, I actually disagree with you guys here. Where now I'm not saying that I don't like Luis, because I actually think he was a great villain. He like basically rivals Sephiroth in my opinion. But
he's one of the best. I think.
Yeah, but I will say, this is just like just a thought of mine that if they did change the story completely to where like Luis kind of becomes like an anti-hero in like in a story. More I suppose one example could be this is a spoilers for FF7, so you can skip ahead like a bit. So it'd be Rufus Shinra, like where he is a villain, but he does like in the end does like help us out like in Advent Children, where he basically is not a villain,
like a redemption arc.
Yeah. So that's what I kind of thought, because he's also a Elden boy as well, or was a boy, but now he's a man. I mean, so that could have worked, but what they did actually does work well, objectively speaking, as well. It's just it's just a different, I guess, artistic choice, or like writer's choice, you could say. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I think I appreciated that Luis was irredeemable, because he's supposed to be like the foil to your protagonist, Will, or
Will,
whoever he is. It's like this is one way humankind can end up, and here's another way. They're both Elda, they're both the like still remnants of the old world, and they both are the kind of outcomes of what this world will turn out to be. So in that way, I liked it, and you just got to explore more of him, get to know him more. He's a very well written, very charismatic villain. So
Yeah,
I love that a
like
lot.
I remember the moment where I decided this is, I think, one of my favorite like Persona villains I've ever seen, was the moment it clicked to me of this man is just Senator Armstrong fused together with fake Gilgamesh. Like he literally gives, like, his whole philosophy is just Senator Armstrong's philosophy on like politics, and like the way he approaches it is just the most Gilgamesh approach ever. And those are like two of my favorite villains, so I really liked him.
Yeah, Luis is good. He's up there with like other Xeno villains as some of my favorites in gaming, I think.
I mean, I always love a villain that upholds his ideals even at the cost of just sanity, essentially sanity at that point.
Yeah, he's more.
But everything. He's
sorry,
like,
go on.
he's like, I just enjoy the fact that he's like, I'll depose your so-called moral ground, and he will rationalize his thoughts and be very steadfast about it. And I think that just makes for a character that's you can at least appeal with, and then his voice work, especially. Like, let's say, for example, that his voice actor did not perform the role nearly as well, or failed to have such a grip with his voice work, his lines, then even that alone could detract from that kind of character. But you have a very resolute character with a very strong and demanding voice, and it just led to such a captivating character that every time he was there, you wanted to see what he would say next.
Yes.
Yes.
Like when he basically not shooed away Stroll, but rather let Stroll just sit with him during the soiree,
right?
And the soiree, instead of just like putting him away or just like, why are you talking to me? You're like, you're
like, I'll tell you exactly how I
like
feel.
he'll actually like try and reason and get you to see his way of, like, again, very Senator Armstrong-esque character.
Yeah.
I did like that, where like he was sort of blunt. He said, "Oh yeah, I killed him," or something like along those lines. Like just like raw. One thing I will say, speaking about the voice, Yig, when you mentioned, I noticed that I believe like all the races, they have their own like accent slash voice. I believe that the fairies, and I want to say the Elden, because I know like Will, or the Prince, they have more of a American accent, whereas the others, they have like a more of like a British or like Australian like accent.
Yeah,
so
the Carapace were like a lot of them had Liverpool accents, like the Magnus brothers were Liverpool. I think Katarina was kind of like a Cockney accent.
Yeah.
And then some others were Scottish. I don't remember right now who was Scottish. I can't think of it. Yeah, it was the Martyrans from Martyra, like Barden and some of the others. I think they had a little bit of a Scottish accent. And then I don't really know what the
Zorba's the weird outlier for that.
Huh?
Zorba's the weird outlier for that.
Yeah,
he's Mustari.
Yeah, Zorba is a Claymore Mustari mix.
So what I was talking about, like the accent with Luis, is that I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure he actually does not change his voice to sound American or whatever accent like the Prince is, once it's revealed that he is an Elden. So that I found to be interesting, because I actually was paying attention to that when hey, different races have different accents. So when when it was revealed that he was an Elden, I'm like, oh, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like I noticed that
another
there was
thing
no
I
voice,
thought about with Luis is it also depends on their like upbringing, because Luis, even as a young boy, left the Sanctum and enlisted in the military. So
Okay.
most of his life was in Uchronia and Grand Trad. So in that way, it is understandable that he probably developed his like British English accent from that.
Okay.
But
Makes
I
sense.
also,
Hmm.
yeah, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. So while we're on the subject of characters, we might as well answer one question from like later on now only. So one question we can like answer, it's by Snom, is who is best girl? So is
Wow,
so
this is a
so if
this
Nish
is a
if you want to go first for this.
yeah. I wouldn't say this is a tough question for me, but actually it kind of is because I really like both Juna and Yufa. And then when Yufa got on the team, I was like, oh, this is like really cool character, very kind of like Melia vibes. I'm a huge Melia fan, so I was like, Yufa's best girl. And then like I continued Juna's bond and her follower bond, and then we learned more about Juna's character through like Rella and stuff. And then I like connected way more with Juna. So I'm just kind of on the fence between those two.
Okay, fair
I'm
enough.
not a Hulkenberg stan. There's many Hulkenberg stans out there. I don't understand. I'm sorry. I don't get
Yeah.
it because especially later on in the game, like major spoilers when you realize that you are the prince, like the
Uh-huh.
whole if you ever had like any romance option with Hulkenberg, it would just feel so awkward and weird in that way.
Yeah, no,
In
yeah,
my opinion.
yeah, and I suppose that this is supposed to be her character, but I found it annoying that she kept trying to use like Your Majesty, whereas the princess, please, relax. You don't have to call me Majesty, But like
Yeah.
she still
What's funny
continues.
is
But I guess
when they
that's in
fuse,
character.
the
Uh-huh.
prince and the protagonist, when they fuse, there's an option where she's like, "Oh, Your Majesty," like and she like goes down on her knees, and like one of the options is like, "Oh, you can get up or whatever," and then she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, like I wasn't there to save you or something." And one of the options is like, "Oh, you can get up, don't worry about it." And one of the options is that's I will sentence you to like something or
Oh
whatever.
god.
And it's just a joke, so I picked the joke answer. And then Heisme like chastises you, is like, "Hey, you shouldn't say that to her or something." And I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, she is
that was a
very
joke."
stupid.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I didn't mind her character. I already kind of accepted that she was kind of an idiot. And I was just like, yeah, you know what? I don't mind people who are dumb. It's like I can understand people's issue with that, but it's like
I
being
like
dumb is being
Hulkenberg
dumb.
as a character. Like she's a well written character. I just don't know if she's best girl
Yeah,
compared
that's
to
fair.
Juna and Yufa.
Yeah.
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 I think for me, I think best girl was like the merchant lady, the one who gives you the merchant class. Like
Brigitte.
unironically,
Brigitte.
Oh, she's cool.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
unironically my
Yeah.
favorite girl. Like I loved her.
Mhm.
She like I think the moment I really felt for her was like doggy. It just
yes.
Li-
She
like
got the dog.
like,
Yeah.
like she is literally just the fucking like Brooklyn Nine-Nine meme of I've known this dog for like 5 minutes, but if anything happens to it, I will kill everyone in this room and then myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about you, Yig? Who's your best girl in the game?
As a potential, like if we had to like even like remotely think of romanceable interests, definitely Yufa for me. Brigitte, very, very, very close second. But as of for overall female characters, actually Gallica
Oh,
would be
okay.
really nice.
Uh-huh.
And I have to very directly quote this as not romantically whatsoever, but story wise, Maria was very
Yeah,
well.
I like Maria a lot.
Maria
in the
was
story. I like her
exceedingly
bond
well
as
handled.
well.
And a lot of people were complaining about Maria's story. I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like this is
Yeah, what is
Maria's
wrong with
story
her?
was a
Yeah. Yeah.
very
She was good.
yeah, it was good, and it's a very good representation of like a lot of the problems happening in the world of the game. So I think it was I think it was done very well. Like Atlas is good with like writing these like younger characters, like they did it with Nanako as well. And I really liked Nanako's character and like how relatable things could be with her as well. So I think they did a good job with Maria in that way. So,
but then and then Galca's also really good because you just see a little bit. I would like to have seen a tiny bit more growth or a little more discussion about what fairies are exactly throughout the game. Other than just a little bit of info with the Sanctum.
yes.
But I feel like Galca grew enough where we did see like moments of like importance, like spring for her throughout the game. That was good. Also, I just like her design, and she's not an annoying protagonist voice, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I will say this. Galca in the story and the cutscenes and all that was great. Galca in combat made me oh my god, dude. Galca would literally comment on every single thing that happens, and I'm like, I can see. Yeah, and she's like, oh, you succumbed to anxiety. Oh, he got another turn. Oh, you missed that attack. Oh, he blocked it. I'm like, I can freaking see what's happening on the screen. I'm playing the damn game. Like, I don't remember Morgana being this annoying. And like,
I was phased out from that, to be honest. I got phased out of it.
That's like some I'd say like Teddy is the more annoying one, but me
Teddy
personally
can be annoying as well, but I think I will say this. I think the best navigator in all of Mega 10 is Fuka in Persona 3 Reload.
Fuka,
specifically in Reload, because in Fez, the voice actress for Fuka sucks in Fez.
My gosh, yeah.
But in Reload, they do so good with Fuka. So
yeah. As for me, so my favorite like navigator, just to like round off that part of the conversation, is Rise. But
Rise is good, yeah.
Yeah, and as for why, is the same reason that I like Juna, because Juna is my best girl. So you see, so I'm a big fan of famous like celebs or like idol. In like video games, or not video games, but like in fiction, where it's like, I guess you could say it's like a power fantasy. It's like, hey, so like the main characters, they're close with this famous person, but not everyone knows of it. It's it's like a cool concept for me. So that's just something that I like. But I will say though, Galca is a close second. Because like she was a very interesting character. My only wish is that we don't know too much about her, which is surprising because she's like the closest person to the MC, yet we know the most little of. So, I don't think she had a proper confidant or a bond. I mean, I know like it was basically like through the story.
It was like a Morgana magician where it progresses as the story goes, which is whatever.
Yeah. I will say though, we might be getting a little like ahead in the conversation, but I'm wondering, do you think Atlas will re-release this game and add a new character and a new story element in some use in the future?
Well, there's already rumors of that happening, and I will say this. Here's my input on it. If they do it, then I really hope they go the Vengeance route. I really hope they do it like Vengeance and have like substantially new content. If it's like Royal, I'll be very upset. But the thing is, I do plan on replaying the game, and I want to replay it on Switch 2 whenever it comes to Switch 2. So I will probably get that definitive version on Switch 2 and play it there. But if they want to re-release it, like they have an opportunity to go Vengeance, do the Vengeance thing, and like add some more stuff to it. But like one of my other friends was saying like they can expand more on Uchronia because there's people who are talking about different continents, different places in the world, and he was saying like you know how Atlas has like their female character add-on to like there's like Marie, Kasumi, and then what's her name? Yoko, and then Strange Journey has someone for Redux and all that. So like for this, they can add that female character coming from that new location in Uchronia, and she comes in as a contestant for the tournament for the throne. and then maybe they have that new bond. Maybe they have like a segment in the game where you can play as Luis, which would be pretty cool.
Oh, yo,
He like
that could
joins
be
you
cool.
on a. But it's kind of like you're still undercover, you're still working with him, and he's like, "Hey, join me on this quest to like do this." It'll be like the Sephiroth Nibelheim moment. That would be really cool.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
they can
Yeah,
do things like
that's-
that.
yeah. What they could also, yeah. So I will say though, it's possible that it's more likely that it's going to be like Vengeance than Royal because the evidence is that you see, so the earliest like re-release was FES, which they just or one of the earliest. I don't know if it's the first one, but they just added like a like I guess a epilogue story or like a expansion story at the very end, and then was Golden, which Golden added Marie and I think a new and like another final boss at the end or dungeon end final boss I should say at the end, and then Royal took things up very much where they added I'd say compared to Persona 4 they added a lot more content and a lot more substantial effort was put into it, but the most amount of effort was in I would say Vengeance, where that I would say is like a completely new game, like fully fleshed out new, like a second story line that you pick from the start. So that was very well done. Because one thing I didn't like in Persona 5 is how Kasumi is kind of like she's awakened, but she doesn't join your party until the very end, which is a which is I like yeah, like it's a bit wonk, but yeah, in Vengeance they did that. So I'm hoping I could be wrong, but that it should be more like that. But I've also heard that this game doesn't need a re-release, but I would argue no, I think this game could definitely use some polishing up in the gameplay section.
Like
it definitely
especially
needs
the boss design. I
Yeah.
really want them to redo like the entirety of the second half of the game's bosses because I'm gonna be real, like I've pulled the game up right now and I'm playing through some New Game Plus right now and I'm just like I do not oh god it's already evoking all the PTSD of just how bad that I do not like the bosses in the second half.
Mhm.
I really want
there's
them to
some
redo
room
that.
for improvement they can do in that way.
Okay. Now yeah, go on.
I will say for story stuff, I wanted to talk about what you guys thought about like the twist about the prince, because it
Sure.
was something that was kind of spoiled to me in a sense that I saw Will with the protagonist with the gray hair, and then I assumed I was
Okay.
like he probably fused with the prince because that's the same hair as the prince, and I should have said this when I played the demo, but when I played this is one like thing about this game which is not necessarily a negative or a downside, but it's just that I predicted a lot of things and I could see a lot of things coming, but I was also wrong in some ways, which is very cool. There's some things that kind of blew my mind, but
Okay.
with regards to the prince, right when I played the demo, I could tell that the prince that we saw there was Eldon, and I was like, I should have said that in my like live stream as I was playing the game. I should have said like, hey, he's Eldon, he's an Elder boy just like us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Like
yeah, go on.
yeah, so when they were like, hey, you should like show yourself off and say that you're the prince, I was like, I can sort of tell, kind of guess where this is going, but I still think the reveal was very good because the way it was presented, the fact that like the whole like theme of the game is like your fantasy can be a reality, and like of course it won't be exactly how it is in your utopian mind or your utopian novel, but you can use that inspiration from your fantasies to like change the world. That's what I got from the game, and it's very very symbolically portrayed through the whole like story of the prince, reading the book, being inspired, but he's too weak to like do anything about it. And then like through his like ambition, he's manifested as the protagonist to go on this journey. And you see that also with the king and with Moore, which was it's also something I kind of saw coming, but it was also very well done later. We can talk about that later. But yeah, I just wanted to know what you guys thought about that, because in the moment I was like, oh, predictable. But the more I thought about it,
the
more I liked it.
When I started the game, like, pretty much over half of the twists in the game, from like the Virga Island Etrian Odyssey, like Shinjuku stuff, to like the prince being like Will, as the, I guess, the community calls him. I managed to predict like pretty like all the big twists in the game, because a lot of them are like generic JRPG twists, and like I've seen it all before, so it's like I see like the flags like almost immediately, even though they did so few of them, and I was like, oh, they're just gonna do like the generic twist, and it's gonna be super predictable, and it's gonna be like, oh yeah, twist for the sake of twist, like all these JRPGs do. And so I kind of went into it expecting it to be like just kind of boring and like not really expecting much out of it. And then like after the first chapter, where like they started doing like the Heismate chat like part of the game, right? Like that whole section, like it's like that had like its own unique like standalone twist, and that was where I started to get like my expectations a bit higher for the game, because like the twist was predictable. Oh yeah, Heismate's not the real culprit. Oh yeah, it's totally gonna be like the noble lady.
Yeah.
Right. But like
yeah, because it was in your face,
the way
like
yeah,
it was in your face that it was gonna be that like Claymore guard, but then the twist that it was Joanna was good, but you could also still kind of see that coming as well. So
it was very like from the moment you start like the section, it just kind of stands out to you, and it's like, okay, I know where this is going. And then like actually getting to see how it's all executed, like getting to see the whole interaction with like Jaime and Joanna at the end, it's like the way it's all presented, that was the moment I went, okay, I actually think I'm excited for this game, because like, yeah, I basically felt like it was the game's way of making a promise of, yes, all these twists are super predictable and super obvious, but the execution and the presentation of it is going to be superb, and that's going to be the big selling point of this game. It's not going to be on like, oh yeah, the twists are surprising. It's going to be the presentation of these twists is going to be amazing, and I honestly feel like pretty much every twist onwards I just loved because of the presentation. I pretty much, I literally called every single twist at in the game like way in advance at some point. But
even like Rella,
again, yeah, even Rella.
Oh,
like
wow,
the moment,
okay.
like we go,
that's the Rella twist is something that I didn't see coming.
I immediately
I would not have gotten that one.
I figured it out because I had this big problem of like there's no evidence to support the idea that Luis was actually the one who poisoned the prince. And the fact that like they made an active effort to avoid giving us that evidence kind of clued me in that it was probably going to be Forden, because we were too trusting of Forden. And so my brain went, okay, so Forden is probably going to be the culprit, or it's going to be someone Forden employed. And then when when you see like Rella like take the curse and like we're having her read through it, she had like this moment where she reacts to it, and I'm like, oh, it's her, she's the actual assassin.
Wow, okay.
Like and that was all.
Oh yeah, if you when I go back and replay the game, I'm going to notice a lot of these kind of things.
But yeah. It's like there's not a lot of foreshadowing for these twists, but there's always like a bit of foreshadowing. There's just enough that if you catch on to it fast enough, it's like, oh yeah, I know what's happening here.
Yeah.
And like then the way it's actually presented, I liked it a lot. It's like it was good.
Yeah.
That's why I liked the soiree as well as the events that happen in Altabury, because a good handful of them you can't really predict, because there's so many easy to spot red flags like all over Grius, all over Joanna.
Grius, bro, dude.
Oh god, the red flags painted all over him.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say this. I thought Grius's death was kind of like it was impactful, but it at times almost felt a little comical to me. I was like, dude, you cannot be seriously thinking you're going to kill this guy in broad daylight, just jumping out and stabbing him. I'm like, is this like, am I supposed to find this funny?
Yeah.
I think they wanted to point out just like that he's like a seasoned like experienced military veteran, and they're trying to like chalk that up to Louise. But then at the same time, they're just like, oh no, Louise is like the prodigal son of the military.
Yeah, yeah, I do wonder if the king's magic was not there, would he have been successful? I mean, I'd probably
They
not.
showed
Louise
there was
is
a little
good.
snippet where you could see that Louise reacted to it. So who's to say?
Luis
But
did turn around.
he turned around to react to it. So
I feel like the story would have naturally just like it wouldn't have been possible for the story to progress if Luis didn't react to it, or to deal with it himself. So I feel like with how competent he is, I just feel like it makes sense for like if the King's magic didn't kick in, Luis probably would have been like hit or something, but probably
like,
not
not
killed,
die.
and then just
Yeah.
and then just take out Grius there. I feel like that's probably the direction they would have taken. Like Choi, no, Grius can do some damage, but like Luis is a monster.
Yeah, and what?
But
yeah, go on.
Sorry, continue.
I'm just gonna ask. So like Yig, so like, what did you think about the twist of the prince?
Yes,
then
that's
I'll
what I
say
wanted.
my thoughts. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the prince.
Well, may I say that after the fact, Atlas's deigned name of Will is so much more incredibly cheeky. And to be honest, after after having realized that, I should have looked at more a little bit the same way, but I didn't, which still threw me off for later on. But I quite liked it. Unfortunately, it was the same sort of deal for me. I sort of got spoiled on the gray hair. Someone was drawing fan art already, and they used like the gray hair design. And it's just like, oh my goodness. And then now it's like, okay, well now I see the similarities after the fact, of course. I quite enjoyed it. I expected something to be happening during the oh my god, not festival, the opera. I expected something to happen during the opera performance that would have made his hair turn like that. Not quite the exact way that would happen, where we'd have to retreat and then we would get revelations at the sanctum itself. I was more expecting to see like a cutscene where the body disappears and then or like fades into light, and then Will's hair color changes like mid combat, for example, similar to like how he had some sort of revelation, or not revelation, but how he had some sort of power bonus during the events of the soiree versus Glaudel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. As for me, I didn't see the foreshadowing so much so, but I did kind of knew that there'd be something where that the MC is the prince, because the way I could see it is the prince or the at the start of the the first half of the game, like what we know of as the real prince. We basically see nothing of him. Like, bro is just sleeping and he just dies off screen. So I'm like, no way that if this was supposed to be an important character, they just killed him off screen. Like, ain't no way. So something is going on where that's not the real prince. So I kind of, but I didn't put two and two together that we might be the prince. But I guess but I did feel something was a bit suspicious. And then when it was,
Sorry, I was going to say it started to get really suspicious how we have the opportunity to focus on all these other characters and their backgrounds, with the exception of Will.
Yeah.
I think that, like, I remember I didn't like the first act of the game, like the tutorial section from a story standpoint, and I remember one of the big reasons why is because I didn't care about Will's motives. It felt like they underdeveloped him to such a degree that I just didn't care about him at all within that first section. Even though they kept hammering us down with his backstory and all that, I didn't care at all. And that was, weirdly enough, one of the things that I think that was like the big thing, where it's like it almost started to feel like that was intentional as a way to like hide something with him, and that was when I feel like
it was intentional, and I was like, we need to know more about the Elda. We need to, like, once we figure out this stuff, it's gonna make a little more sense.
Yeah, speaking of the Elda, I did actually caught on that, but I said to myself, wait a minute, Eldas, these are just like what we call like like us in real life, humans, because they don't have
Yeah.
some silly horns or feline
Yes,
ears.
they say that.
Yeah.
They literally say that at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
no knife ears or
Yeah.
horns. You must
Yeah.
be an elder.
Yeah, so and I'm sitting there going, wait, why is this called a human? Which yeah, I'm like, oh, it's some like a fantasy thing, but yeah, just one more thing about the prince I want to say is can I just say I low key I kind of don't like that the prince ended up actually becoming the king. I don't know, as a character, it doesn't fit him. He's more of like, oh, maybe he's just young, so that's probably why. But I guess I assume when he gets older, he would be, more kingly, you could say. But then in the end, or in the epilogue, I should say, they showed how he actually was the same. Like, even though he is a king, he is still Will, or the captain or
Yeah,
prince.
and I
Yeah,
appreciated that because
yeah,
he was destined to be the king, and that was kind of his end goal, his end game. The world still needed a ruler, but they didn't want a like ruler who was ruling out of fear and always like worrying about like not being able to do the right thing, which was his father. And then his
Yeah.
father had to like uphold all the anxieties and fears of all the people with the royal scepter, and it just kind of brought him down.
yeah.
Instead of doing anything about it, he just like was brought down. So I think this representation of him being a king was done a lot better.
Yeah, because initially to me I was like, this guy does not fit as like what we assume or if you imagine a king would be like in like other fictions, but so he's definitely like a unique guy because like even at the end, if you recall, like he straight up just like somehow leaves his palace and no one notices, and like Hulkenberg is like, wait a minute, where's the king? and then same. Yeah, I found it to be very funny, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. So I'm happy that they didn't just straight up change his character completely at the end. Where like now he's someone completely different now. So I'm like, I'm happy with this. Which, speaking of which, so Mac asks, do you have any theories, ideas for what they could do in a sequel? And I will say that I personally, I don't know if this game needs a sequel to
I don't
say.
think it needs a sequel either.
Yeah, I
I don't think it'll need a direct sequel.
Yeah, I think I could see something like in Persona where they have like Metaphor ReFantazio, however you say it, too, but it's like Persona where it's a different new world, or new characters completely. I could see that, but I don't think. Maybe we could see like a short epilogue gameplay story where they go on their adventure because they are going somewhere at the very end, but I don't think we need a proper Metaphor 2 with this exact setting and cast. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't want a direct sequel because like I know like everyone is saying there's so much more we can learn about this like world and stuff. We can have that through like new original games. I would want Metaphor as a series to sort of be like Final Fantasy, where
Yes.
things are different, but you keep the core essence of what it is. Because one of my other friends gave a really cool idea about what sequel to Metaphor could be, and he said that Metaphor originally, like Project ReFantazio, is it's supposed to be like it was marketed as rethink fantasy, like it is a kind of unique approach to rethinking the conventions of a fantasy RPG. And I think they should do that for another genre. Like imagine they do that for science fiction. Imagine they do that for like an entirely different genre. What if they do like Metaphor in the future or something? I don't know. But I still think there is room for doing stuff within the fantasy genre, but I don't know. I think they should get like whatever's coming next for them. I feel like it's going to be something that we don't expect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, Yig?
So, we do have that little bit of teaser from Katharina about saying like she went on an expedition and they at Will's behest and they found cultures across the sea. So if they were to even remotely do anything direct, I would like to see it something beyond that point, but with a different cast entirely. Like, a lot of people really love Katarina, so if Will has to return and be the sort of prodigal explorer king, I would like to see like Will and Katarina, and then everyone else be new characters, for example, if we have to go like that.
Okay.
But aside from that, I wouldn't mind seeing more of this style in different periods of time, like how the director was suggesting. Like, he was like laughing about like, oh well, let's do it Sengoku period, or Sengoku War era, with this kind of like setting. It's like, okay, I can get that. And then the other question on my mind is, especially within the last few days, apparently there's rumors of a Metaphor ReFantazio retold.
Mhm.
I don't know if
Yeah.
any of you have
Oh,
seen
I
that.
have not actually seen that. I'm gonna quickly look that up right as you speak. But yeah,
The general gist of it is it's the same thing Atlas does with any sort of one of their games, where it's like, we have Persona
It's
5
basically
and it
Royal.
comes to
oh, you
5
mean that? Okay.
Royale. Yeah.
Oh, you
Um,
mean like the re-release? Okay, got it. Okay.
Essentially, yes, but it's like, oh, it has like all this quality of life, or it has new sections, or a new character, or new dungeons. And I'm like, okay, well, if that's the case, will we actually see Mage Academy? Like, will we actually step into the Mage Academy?
I forgot
Yeah.
that wasn't in the game.
Yeah,
But
Go on. Yep.
yeah, but I enjoy it. It would be hard for me to be a full proponent of a direct sequel, but I would very much like to see more in this vein of storytelling.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about you, Elementary?
I mean, I went into this game with a pretty low bar, mainly because of like the first section of the story. And I came out like I didn't even go into any of the marketing. I didn't look at any of the marketing. One of our friends, a guy named Tempest, told me that he had seen all of it and predicted all the twists, and just from like the trailers and all that. And honestly, I'm not surprised. If I was able to predict it all, like really till the end of the game, there's no way he couldn't have predicted it from the trailers. But I came out of this really satisfied, and I like, again, I have some issues with some of the boss design, but like I really like the story. I really enjoyed it. I really want to see more like this. I really want to see more in this kind of vein of like redefining the genre itself,
Yeah.
instead of just sticking to like what's safe. Like get crazy, get risky, right? Like that's what
Yeah.
made this. I feel like it's, in a weird way, that's kind of what made this game work. It's like it focused less on like it took like these like safe twists that it knew people liked, and then it just said, let's like explore why these things are so interesting. Let's break
Yeah.
this down and really flesh this out in a way that's like not about like because fantasy as a whole has very much been defined by Tolkien to be very lore dumpy and very like overly focused on world building. But this game was very focused on philosophy and themes and ideology, and that's
It tried to connect a lot of it to our lives, which I really appreciated. It was very relatable and applicable to a lot of people in just many ways.
It very much like subverted that sort of Tolkien standard for fantasy writing and pushed more into like a philosophical approach to writing, which is much more what I prefer. I very much like this more.
I will say this, Elementary, you might like totally get this, but I played Xenogears this year finally, after so much procrastination and putting it off. I finally played Xenogears. Absolutely blew my mind. Loved it so much. The fact that I played Metaphor right after Xenogears, I just feel like I'm at the apex of JRPG storytelling, and I love it. I love both, and a lot of the kind of inspirational and kind of applicable things from Xenogears is also sort of present here in Metaphor. I won't get into that too much, but I really liked how a lot of this game represented a lot of those kinds of things. Like I'll say, my favorite part of the story, like it's a very quick, not quick, but it doesn't last very long. Basically, it is when you are fighting more in that fantasy
Yes.
where he's like,
yes,
I want you
that
to
is
stay
my
in this fantasy.
That's my favorite part of the entire story as well.
I think
oh my
it's
god.
the best part of the entire game because it ties everything together. Like the whole point of the game is you should be inspired by your fantasies. You should be inspired by stories of heroes and kings of old and all that, but you can't like be trapped in it. That's what happened
Yeah.
to the king, and that's where the king
Yeah.
failed. And that's what happened with
It's-
Moore, and that's how he failed. But he
Uh-huh.
wants you to like
The way
still live out
they
it
built
this
that
fantasy.
well. Oh
What?
my god. The way they built that whole section up throughout the game as well, I think is phenomenal, right? Where they
Yeah.
where they've kind of seeded this idea of like, oh yeah, they overly idolize and they overly worship this utopic world, which is like our real world. But like if you like for all of us, we already know that it's not a utopia. We've got like war and strife and famine and all these like general political issue that's like and it's like there's no way that this is a utopia. So it's just this instant like recognition of I don't agree with how they're presenting our world, and you instinctively just disagree with it, and the way it just kind of slaps you in the face of like that's no different from how this world is. It's like you don't need to do like some crazy exposition to explore this idea. It's just a natural part of it because that's how like psychology and human nature and all these different elements all kind of fold together into into just what a world is, and you don't need to tell people that. You can just expect them to get that, and it connects it so well, like in just that moment where Will goes, I don't think this world is a utopia. Just the moment that it just connects, right? Like this world is no different, right? They're both the same world. It's like they're completely different worlds, yes, but they're the same world at the core of it. They are a metaphor for each other. It just
and
that's a great way of using this idea to connect everything. Oh,
and the way like Will makes that decision of like I can't live in this fantasy world. I need to like go back to my reality and make a change. That is that's like everything that this story is all about. And yeah, it was my favorite part of the game, and it was done very well. And it brought back one of my favorite songs from the game. I was like, dang, that one song only gonna be in that one part of the game, rip. And then it came back. I'm like,
I have to confess, when I reached that point, I actually picked the wrong option. Okay, to be fair, I didn't assume or think that it would lead me to the bad ending completely. I thought that it would, sometimes where that you pick the option, but it doesn't matter because it forces you to pick the right option anyways. But no, it just gives you the bad ending. I'm like, oh, I have to redo the final boss now. Shit. Which was not fun, but I guess lesson learned. Yeah. Honestly, that whole like aspect with Moore and like the where we enter Shibuya, which I'm pretty sure is a Persona 5 asset, that like background is a Persona 5 asset, like 100%. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that when we found out that Moore is the dad itself, but like kind of how like the main protagonist is to the OG prince, that's how Moore is to the king, or the old king, I should say. I didn't expect that. That was the one twist that I had not seen coming whatsoever. Like the Rella one, I could kind of somewhat see being a little sus where but this one I did not expect at all. More being the king. I'm like, what? I thought it was gonna be some sort of like from Persona where like he's more of like an Igor character, more like mysterious, but they don't really, dive super deep into the character. But no,
I always knew that there was going to be something up with Moore.
Yeah,
and he was the character that I was most interested in learning more about.
Yeah, they like I noticed pretty quickly he wasn't gonna be just another Igor because they were actually fleshing him out. And then I caught onto a few really weirdly specific clues. First off, this was kind of like the big thing that kind of pushed me in this direction. There was a point where like when Moore was speaking, my brain just went, is this the king's voice? But without a filter?
Oh, yeah.
What?
Yeah,
really?
What was interesting is, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but Moore had a more, like, casual... It was sort of British, but, like, not as, like, posh and British. And then you hear Hythlodaeus V speak, and it's very posh and British. But then,
Yeah.
after he reveals that I am the archetype and manifestation of King Hythlodaeus V, then when you talk to him in academia, he has more of a proper British accent. And
Yeah.
I'm like, dang,
He switches
this
his
is like the
mannerism,
real them. Yeah, so that was
Yeah.
cool.
All right.
But like the other clue I clued into it more was like he's constantly shown to have this connection to like the voice in our head, and then like when the prince reveal happened, that was like what confirmed for me that Moore had to be the king, because they showed that they heavily implied that like the voice in our head, the one that was giving us our
This is your
archetype,
mom.
yeah, this is your mom, and so it's like
Yeah.
that connection to Moore then is like, oh, okay.
Yeah, honestly, that like the whole ending section, like after the final boss with the Moore and like the mom and like the fantasy or like the real life stuff, that all got me to, I'm like, yo, this game story is cooking hard. Like it was finally like a build up, because I won't lie, the story up till that point, like it felt like, I want to say like I don't mean to say in a super negative way, but like it felt generic in a sense that, it's some like, it's some fantasy JRPG story, it's decent, but it didn't hit the level of like, oh shit, this is awesome, until those reveals, in for me at least. No, don't know.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
liked it because I could kind of tell that there was like many things that they were kind of leading up to. Like I noticed that there was like, you had the mystery of the humans, you had the
Uh-huh.
mystery of the Elda. So I was like, that stuff is being talked about. And then you had the tournament which started. That was a very interesting thing as well. I was like, oh, this tournament, let's see where this goes, let's see what happens. And then like the whole like first part of the game is, how are we going to kill Louise and save the prince? So that was like your main goal, and every step you were taking was to get closer to that goal. Like your end goal was to save the prince, but then the tournament was there just so you can get closer to Louise to kill him. And I was like, oh, that's a cool way to like inch closer and closer to the end game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yggdrasil, what are your thoughts on all this? We've been talking for too long.
Yeah.
No, all good. I wanted to let you guys have the spotlight on that, but
Yeah.
I quite enjoy it. I do think that the payoff towards the end is magnificent, and again, as with Moore, it's like going back to Moore, and then you look at Hythlodaeus, and then you just, it makes sense after the fact. But I just have to agree with you on everything, honestly. The payoff towards the end was great. I did feel it was very good, considering just, again, we were in red flag country, where it's like we don't know how this part's going to play out, or like the steps, but we could see sort of where it's going to go. I got a question. What do you guys think about Forden? Did you expect that we were going to have to fight him?
No,
Yes.
dude.
Yeah.
'Cause I
Actually,
was
you
expecting
go
a
first. I'm
fight.
sorry.
Yes, I actually, because it's Forden, and for one thing I have learned, it like a trope in games is that the church is bad. So anyone with, and the leader of a freaking church is, no, this guy is sus. He's gonna be evil. I'm like, we're fighting you some point, or fighting some like, I guess, lackey or something of the church. Like I knew that was coming at some point in time.
But not for Forden to fall in the way that he did.
No, the way, again, that like the whole like Forden dying, if I remember correctly, unless I'm completely brain farting, Luis like killed him when he came back to life, or quote unquote
Yeah.
fake that. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yes, Louise just like straight up stabs him.
yeah, that was a bit, again, just going back to the whole Luis coming back to life things too quick. I think that should have happened like a good, I want to say 1 hour later into the game, in my opinion. I think that could have been a bit more, bit more cooler, but yeah, like it kind of just happened and he kind of just died.
Yeah, the events again, it just leads back to the events of Altabury just being so close to one another.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of saw Forden, the way Forden dies coming. When it came to like how that was gonna play out, I was thinking about it thematically, like as it was coming to like how they like how Forden and Luis like all pair like it's like Forden, Luis, and Will are all like the spectrum with like Will in the center, and it was like very clearly like leading the idea of like the church and all that represent like escapism, and I think it's a really great way of exploring like the church is evil. It's like how escapism like affects us as like, yes, we're running away from our fears and all that, but like it's like we don't know what the alternative is. It's like and
It's
Luis is like
escapism, and it's like it is apathy. It's like turning a blind eye to the problems that are really there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and through Luis, you see that like it's not just like it's like through Luis, it's like you see like it's not just like the church is evil. It's like because Luis is so against them for those exact reasons, but inadvertently becomes that exact same person. He becomes and like you could see that like building up to it, like in the way he had portrayed his ideology. And so his ideology and like through those philosophical discussions with him, he's no different than Forden. But at the same time, you get to understand him and Forden at the same time. But like.
Yeah.
It also like very heavily highlights the fact that like realistically you could swap out one of the villains and you'd have the other one and it would be exactly the same. But I felt like at that point it's like, oh yeah, we've had more build-up with Luis as a character, so I felt like it made more sense to just knock off Forden. But knowing how generic JRPGs tend to go, what'll probably happen is we'll kill off Luis, he'll turn out to not actually be the main villain, and then Forden will turn into the main villain. Maybe Luis will come back and join us and all that, and that might be a little bit more enjoyable for me. Maybe he gets a redemption arc, maybe not. But I very much like the direction of like Luis is the one who killed him because he can't see that like he's no different than Forden at the core. He can't like he's so opposed to being like Forden that he is exactly the same as Forden, and he can't see that. And he, I liked that like the execution. Like I like the fact that like he's the one who takes down Forden. I like the fact that like it happens when he comes back. I do feel like I feel like the build up to like the Forden reveal and like Luis coming back and then Luis killing him and like that whole section, that like whole cutscene, I feel like there could have been more stuff in between, like all the like us just killing Luis just before this and that whole section. Like I feel like those reveals, I like that they were all together. Don't like that it was right after us just like killing Luis. Like I feel like we should have had like a dungeon or two in between, but
Yeah.
Yeah, and what about you, Nishkum, regarding the Forden stuff?
I never. I liked that Forden and the Sanctus Church were like another like kind of power structure within all of this. It almost felt like they were separate from all the other tribes that were in this world, and I liked the kind of like politics and interplay that they had there, but I never saw them as much of a threat. It's like I'm gonna use a Xenogears example here again. It's almost like whenever they were having those meetings, it felt like the Gazelle Ministry, but the Gazelle Ministry feel more intimidating when you first encounter them. When I first saw the Sanctus Church, I was like, these guys are just goofballs trying to figure shit out, whatever, right? And I never took them seriously enough to like say, hey, these guys are going to overtake as the main villains. But I still really like their role in the story and in the game. And what I really liked is how they were responsible for a lot of things that set up the main story. Like, Forden was always trying to replace the king from the very beginning. Forden was the one who groomed Rella into eventually cursing the prince. Like, a lot of that started with the church. And seeing how they've kind of influenced and corrupted society all the way from the very start, and then you learn about it more in Brigida's bond and all that. It was very interesting and it was cool, so I appreciated that.
Okay. All right. So if you guys have any like like anything brief to like say about the story section, and then we can move on to the next section?
I think I basically said everything that I needed to say. I will say one more very quick thing.
Mhm.
It was I liked how elementary you said that the church represented escapism, but it's interesting that like there's another form of escapism within the game, which is through the utopia, and we see that through more as well. But it's a it's a very different representation of escapism, but it's also another like unhealthy way of
Yeah, I mean, like
going about
literally
stuff.
more like even like there's a few. I remember like there's a few lines of dialogue where like more basically compares like his utopia to like, oh yeah, like Luis isn't wrong. Like he's gonna create like a new utopia and all that, just like how I'm gonna make a new utopia so you can escape from Luis. It's like
Yeah,
it's that parallel of all of them are just pursuing like some paradise to shelter people. Like the church, the concept of a church itself is that same like paradise. It's that same utopia
yeah,
that like these people are then clinging to as an escape. And like we've lost our previous paradise that like shelters everyone with the church and Forden's downfall. And now they're trying to substitute their own, right? Like Luis and more, and that's all it is. It's
yeah,
they're trying to instigate their own like cultures of escapism, of running away.
yeah. But yeah, that's basically all I had for the
Okay.
story.
All right, so we will move on to the next section. All right, we are back, and now on to some questions. So we actually answered some questions along with like the topics as we are speaking, because I figure for some questions it just flows better, but for some of these we weren't able to do that. So here they are. So Mac also asked, what's your favorite song in the game, and what was the most emotional part of the game for you? So I'll just quickly go first. My favorite song has got to be the battle theme when you initiate the battle. Like that song is a banger. And emotional part, I will say, I gotta say, I think it's when Basilio's brother died. I'm sorry, I forgot his name
Yeah,
on
that
top of my
was
head.
Cordelia.
Yeah, yeah,
dude. Yeah,
yeah. That was
especially
sad.
when I think Basilio's archetype awakening was done so well
Yeah.
when he like comes to terms with, hey, like my brother is gone and like I have to take the reins and now I have to be responsible for the things that I'm supposed to do. Like that
Mhm.
was very well
Mhm.
done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
and yeah. Go on, Nish, for your favorite song
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
for me, most emotional scene was probably the one with more at the end, like
Yeah.
the parent wanting to kind of like protect you, but you know like what's you know what is right for yourself and what you must do and all that. So
Yeah. I'm gonna add on to that there. That's also my favorite scene, or the most emotional scene for me. The Basilio scene, Awakening, is probably my number one until that moment. But that scene and the song that plays it, I believe it's called either "Roaming the Wastes" or "Wandering the Wastes."
yes,
Are
yeah, traversing the
uh,
waste, something like
traversing
that.
the waste. That's it. Yeah. That's my favorite song in the game as well.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
For me, my favorite song is I believe it's called "Ode to Heroes," the theme that plays in Academia.
yeah,
Okay.
that's
Mm,
that's
Yeah,
great.
And then
that's a good song.
as
Mhm.
for emotional parts, I'm torn between Heisme's confrontation with Joanna as
That was
well
good.
as Maria's rank 8. And
Oh.
finally, uh, the rank 8 for Stroll, which is
Yeah.
very, it's not, it's not very strong on emotions as it is strong on, um, like growth development. It's a very quiet and somber moment, but it's impactful. I guess
Yeah.
that's what I'll say.
Okay.
So those would be my favorites.
Okay. All right. So next question we have it's by Silver Shield, and he asks, "What's your favorite archetype and thoughts on the system? Did you like the dungeon designs? If not, what could they improve on? And if yes, why?"
So dungeon. I'll start with dungeon
Yeah.
design. Dungeon design. make them more involved, make them like Persona 5, like add more, pace them out better with the story. So that's that. Archetype system was good. Make it less grindy, make it less like a little more lenient. Just make it so we aren't forcing ourselves to grind all the time. Otherwise, it was fun to play around with. It was really cool. My favorite archetype is a very tough question. I like Persona Master. I liked Summoner a lot. The Summoner lineage was a lot of fun to play around with. Knight was one of my least favorites until it became one of my most favorites. And yeah, those are all cool. I used to like Gunner and Sniper, and then Dragoon was kind of mid, but I liked Gunner and Sniper a lot as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and what about you, Yig?
For me, my favorite archetype would have to be, and this is because I ran MC as like magic based. So I just love the idea of Elemental Master and then buffing things off, like unlocking Warlock to then go back and buff Elemental Master felt really nice. But I also just did enjoy pretty much any of the archetypes that didn't just solely rely on MP. So like the Brawler series and Tycoon series or Merchant series. And then also just for the sake of the numbers, Swordmaster was really fun at endgame when I finally had Stroll just fully built up to actually like do some crazy numbers and get really good crits going. So it was just fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Swordmaster was good.
Yeah, and what about you, Elementary?
My thoughts are kind of a mix of Nish and Yig's thoughts. I think for the most part, it's the same as Nish. I think I have a definitive favorite like archetype though. It's probably Merchant / Tycoon. I think that's probably my favorite, just because I love the idea of just literally throwing money at my enemies to resolve all my problems.
Yeah, I like that too. To be fair,
Merchant's a good grinding class too.
Yeah, like it might be the most broken class in the game from what everyone's told me. And I would believe it. But like I just it's like I'm fine with it being the most broken class just because it's so fun and unique. And also just the novelty of throwing money at all your problems is too funny.
And then I think the other, I'm sorry to cut off, but I think the other question was about the dungeon design. Like I said earlier on, I thought the first dungeon was fantastic. Fourth dungeon was just as good. And then I just don't think anything else, even like the very last dungeons, didn't compare. So I would have loved to have seen more along the idea of the first one, where it's like an evolving dungeon where there's different predicaments that are arising in the middle of the dungeon as you either like explore more of it or ascend through it. And with the archetype system, I think Nishquik brought this to me when he was at that part of the game. He was like venting to me a little bit. It was like, it's really annoying how we have a vendor to like convert Magla into like gold.
Money.
Why can't we have it the other way around? Like I'm sitting on like 700, 800K. And I'm not using Tycoon. Why can't I just like get all the mag and be done with the grind?
Yeah, that could be something in this Royal Edition or re-release they do. That could be a thing they could add, because that seemed like something that they would. That could the re-release is definitely a lot easier or lenient, I would say, from Atlas. So that could be something I could foresee. As for me, my favorite archetype has got to be Trickster, actually, because I love using that command. I forgot the exact name, which basically there's like, you most of the times you get like 4 extra press turns. So yes, you could call
Baker's Roguery.
I guess I am a hypocrite when I get angry when the enemy does it, but I don't care when I do it. But you know what? I don't care because we are the main character. So, but
Baker's Roguery is also fun to use when it comes to that, because it's gambling. So it's like it might just royally screw you over.
Oh no! But then I just do like the restart. Then so it doesn't matter.
It's like what we mentioned before of crit fishing.
Yeah, as for thoughts on the system, honestly, I think the dungeons were okay. Definitely not to the near of what I would say in Persona 5. Well, other than Okumura's Palace, which we don't talk about. But yeah, but I did like all the dungeons. They were fine here. The only one that I hated was the one with I think it was called I think it was called the Dragon Temple, where we go through that horrendous maze. Uh, I should mention that maze was not the hard part. I did not mind that maze because I actually figured out the gimmick. Like I think you follow like the light above or something. But the hard part was the part afterwards. Boy, walking around that human, and that felt just irritating. That was when I had to switch to easy mode for a while because, bro, I could not do, for the love of God. This was extremely tedious, and I did not know where to go.
The human in that one was annoying.
Yeah.
I was fine with it because I did that dungeon near the end of the deadline.
Okay.
So I'd done so many other dungeons before, so I was over leveled and I was defeating all these enemies with fast combat. So the only enemies I really had to deal with were the humans if they found me, or the ones later into the dungeon, like the Cyclops and the cooking human.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And yeah, as for what they could improve on dungeon wise or design wise, honestly, again, I think I think they were okay for the most part. Just if they don't have what they had with the Mustari the Dragon Temple, it should be okay. I don't really hate the other dungeons that much. They're fine. As for the archetypes system, what could improve there? Yeah, I think Nishk and the others, they said it. I think just make it a bit less grindy. Which, if they re-release, I think they'll definitely take that into consideration. So we should be in good hands. Or worst case, for a sequel, or Metaphor 2, whatever whatever comes from that. All right. And last question, also by Silver Shield. He asked a spoiler question. At the end of the game, after you are surrounded by all of the humans in that cutscene, after defeating Luis the first time, how do you think all the party members survived? Stroll, Heisme, and Basilio are all on free fall, and I thought nearest Skyrunner was crashed. How did all of them come back? Or was it more the king's magic that brought them back? And yeah, and excuse my grammar. The question itself was not written the most professional or best grammar, so I stumbled a little bit. But you guys go on for this.
No, I get what he's saying, but I think in terms of them falling, I think. Well, one thing is I just kind of suspended my disbelief, and I was like, JRPG fantasy story, they're gonna fall, whatever, like they'll probably make it. But also, like, what's interesting about the archetypes, it is the most pure form of magic. Like, it is like almost like you were a super power, like superhero. Like, you have additional like power and strength, and like I do think the power of the archetypes and their like support in the prince and in Will kind of saved them in that moment as well. So as cheesy as that sounds, that's what I think.
I'm gonna double up on the cheese, and I'm just gonna say it's literally just the same type of magic that gave Will his personification, aside from like his manifestation, essentially, as well as the same magic that gave rise to more. It literally is the same scale of magic that helped to save them, albeit off screen, so it's always up to interpretation. Or for all we know, they could have just simply it's like, it's like, oh, the runner came back and it was like propelled by original magic and all this. I don't know.
I remember that for Stroll and Basilio, at the very least, there is an explanation given that they like grabbed onto Heisme and he flew them back up, because remember, he is Batman. But for the others, I'm just gonna have to assume it's just magic bullshit. Go burr. Yeah, what Nish and Yig are saying.
Yeah, as for me, I'm just gonna be honest. I'm not gonna say some bullshit answer. I actually don't remember the exact details, so I can't really answer this on right now. I would have to rewatch the cutscene, but yeah. And I think that about covers it for the podcast, though.
Yeah.
If you guys have anything else to say before we wrap it up, feel free to speak.
I think I basically hit on everything that I wanted to. Yeah, I was very hyped for this game ever since it was Project ReFantazio. And I really liked it. I think it's going to age very well. It's a story that is very universal. It's something that we can look back in on like 30 years and still really like still appreciate quite a bit. So I really liked it. I think it lived up to my hype and expectations. And for me, like Nishquik Pops, I have written a 12-page script on my thoughts on Metaphor, and it's like 12 pages and like 6,000 plus words.
Oh god.
So be on the lookout for that. I haven't even started editing. I just finished the script, and I will get that out sometime soon. And I'm very excited to
Best of luck
share
with
that
that.
with everyone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about Yig and Elementary? You guys have anything else to finish off, or you guys good?
I don't know that I'll create my own separate video for Metaphor. Maybe I will, but I covered my thoughts very briefly on my top 5 games of 2024 video that I just released a few days ago. So I feel quite confident in saying what I wanted to, albeit very briefly, but I think I'll be good for a while. Maybe I'll come back and actually give Nightmare Mode a shot whenever I feel like really hurting
Good luck.
myself in that
Yeah,
kind
best
of
of
way.
luck with that.
But aside from that, I think I'm all good.
Okay. And what about you, Elementary?
My thoughts on this game were I came into this with like the complete opposite perspective as like Nishquik did, where I didn't really have like high expectations for it. I wasn't really sure what to expect. I literally only picked up the game because you guys showed me a little bit and I was like, this seems interesting. Yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot. And like also like then you Falto like invited me to this podcast and I was like, you know what? Yeah, no, now I've got to pick up this game, right? Like so for me, it like I went into this like slightly like seeing it as like a job for me for like so that I could be here for this podcast. But I'm really, really glad I did because I absolutely loved it, and I agree with what Nishquik said. I think this game will age very well. Yeah.
I'm very happy. I'm really happy it won Best Narrative at the Game Awards. Like Game Awards are trash. Like it's whatever. But like I'm really happy it got that recognition that it deserved because like the other games nominated were good. I just was I was feeling a little iffy. Like I don't want it to go to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I really want Metaphor's narrative to be like respected and like given the recognition it deserves. Like I like Rebirth. I talked about it with Falto on this channel, but compared to Metaphor, like wow, it's no contest.
Okay, as for me, I swear I'm not lying to be like the contrarian, but unfortunately for me, this game as a whole, I was very hyped, but it did not live up to the hype for me at least. Again, I think narratively the game is very good. Gameplay wise, it could use a concept is good, gameplay wise, but the execution is definitely a bit lacking. But the story is where the game's meat is at. I'd say it's a strong point from an objective standpoint. But but I don't know. I think if I'm going to be honest, if the start was a little bit more engaging story wise, and the gameplay was a bit more forgiving, I think I would definitely enjoy this game a lot more. But I think those two factors ended up making me I wouldn't say I didn't like it because I actually enjoyed my time a lot. It's just like I can't pull it to the same tier as like Rebirth or or like Yakuza or like Solar Blade for me that I played this year. Like this is still a fun game, but like it's like It's like a solid, I say 8 out of 10, but I can't give it a 10 out of 10. Basically, is what I'm trying to say.
I think that's kind of my score on it as well. I like, for me personally, I do really like this game. I really enjoyed it, and again, my stance on it is very much like I'm glad this game will age very well. But if I analyze it objectively, I think I'd call it an 8.2 out of 10.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
It's not metaphor.
Oh
but it's
yeah.
not
No. Yeah. Yeah. Which I think is fair, or I'm sorry, by fair I mean which I think is fine. I should say, because this again, knowing Atlas, they will most likely re-release this, so that's going to be very good. And if we get a sequel, or again, I don't think it's going to be a direct sequel, but like it's going to be like Final Fantasy or like Persona, where it's like like a new world, new story, new cast, and something like that. I think that could be where they take the lessons and improve upon that, and that could be very good. Which actually, this is a little off topic, but it's related to Atlas. I will say, I'm wondering if this game could influence Persona 6 though. What do you guys think about that?
Before it will influence Persona 6.
Yeah.
Probably.
One thing,
Yeah.
I think Persona 6 is already like complete as a game. I think it's complete, so I don't think in that way it'll influence Persona 6, but it is going to be compared heavily to Persona 6. Or Persona 6 will be compared heavily to Metaphor. And I think like it's different studios, like P Studio is working on Persona 6. Studio Zero has been doing Metaphor. And they're both within Atlas, so they've been talking to each other. They've been discussing. They've been like, "Hey, here's what we've been doing. Here's what I've been doing," kind of thing. Because
again, what you said is what I believe too. Is I think Persona 6 is mostly done and done. It's just that behind the scenes, I'm pretty sure that they're piggyback offing, assuming that there's a healthy developer culture there. Hopefully so. There should be like
Hashino was once on P Studio. He wants the best for them.
So and the one thing that I'm actually that I think could actually be in Persona 6, I'm just gonna say one small detail is I think something like the Gauntlet Runner that could be very well, where like if you want to like travel like if it's like a traveling across the country thing or something, where if we have like maybe a bit older cast, I don't know, could be a thing, but that's assuming we have an older cast. If we don't, then that won't happen.
Travel around the metaverse in our Morgana car or whatever the equivalent is.
Yeah. No, I was thinking more like I guess traveling across Japan or the world, whatever.
I was just joking.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. As for and anything else you guys have, anyone before we do wrap it up for real?
I think I'm all good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Thank you guys for coming on. I will see you guys later. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Subscribe to the Epic Falto, or else I will use Sacred Arrow and Burning Sword on you and your entire family.